take projection.
It's Wednesday morning, and you know what that means. It's time for another episode of the Alabama Slam podcast. I'm your host, Corey Hanna.
How do we do the intro now? There's three of us.
You dog.
What's up, guys? It's me, Patrick.
And our new co-host, Stephen Efird. Say hello, Stephen.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Stephen's been a guest on the show before, but he's becoming a permanent co-host, and we are excited about it. So, Stephen, tell us just a little bit about yourself. Tell the listeners a little bit about yourself before we get into it.
I am an old head when it comes to wrestling. I can tell you back, the first wrestling memory I have is sitting in an auditorium in Virginia somewhere watching Wahoo McDaniels versus Ric Flair for an NWA title. So I've sat through a lot of this awful stuff for a long time.
It was pretty good that night, though. Wahoo and Ric Flair.
Yeah, that one. I can't tell you who won at this point. I just remember being, just there in the middle going, this is the wildest thing I've ever seen. And it's just sparked a passion for it. And from that point on, where I'd sit going in college, I'd take myself out because ECW would do a lot of tours around where I was. So we'd go out there and I'd be sitting there with my painted mannequin head chanting for Al Snow.
Nice.
Cool. Well, yeah, we'll go ahead and jump into it because we got a ton to discuss this week. This might be kind of funny the way I want to try to do it just for reactionary purposes. We have a Google Doc where we make notes each week, and it's usually, with it just in the past being me and Patrick, I would type out a couple things that I thought were interesting, or either just a match, and then we could go from there and lead discussion wise, and Patrick will put a couple ideas in. And then this week, there's just lots of new stuff from Stephen, and some of it's pretty funny just to read on its own. So we'll go down the list, and then we'll see who put what in the notepad. We'll start out with WWE first this week. We'll go with SmackDown Friday night. Someone, I got a feeling Charlotte Flair is the worst of the horsewomen. And then it says in parentheses, damage control / history matters. And Sean C looks like a Q-tip.
It was not me. So I think
it was me. It was me. I'll admit it.
So elaborate on that for a little bit, because I think you're wrong about Charlotte.
Oh, you think so? Okay. So we got that match. We got the three-way tag team, her, Belair, and Asuka versus Io, Kairi Sane, and Bayley. And we know that Charlotte Flair has his ongoing history with Io, where, what was it, about 2 years ago or something, where she concussed her and then was slapping the crap out of her because she wasn't, reacting, even though the poor woman's out there concussed. And we go right back into that. She's in a match with the woman, straight first match back, and there she is, Flair. And she's trying to throw her into stairs, and Flair is just stumble-footing around like it is just, she's got 5 left feet and 3 of them are tied together with shoelaces. And it makes me realize just how, if you compare her to Becky Lynch, who's the better one?
I mean, my personal favorite is Becky. I don't know that makes her better than Charlotte. Long run, it'd have to wait and see long run. Obviously, Charlotte's been at it longer, but
I'd go so far as say Charlotte is the worst wrestler in every one of her relationships. Think about her marriage. Who's the better wrestler in the marriage?
Well, we know how much I love Andrade.
Yeah, we're an Team Andrade podcast.
Her direct family. Who's the best wrestler in her family?
Well, her dad's the GOAT.
There you go. In her peer group, she isn't even close to being the best one. Bayley will rip her up on the mic because Charlotte Flair can't cut a promo to save her life.
I'll give you that, but I don't like Bayley at all.
Becky, I think, is a better pure wrestler. And what is it, Monet now?
Mercedes Moné.
Yeah.
She is the Darby Allin of that group, or she will cripple herself to get over. And Flair is just, when you compare them to the other three, she is at the very bottom. I ain't saying she's not good compared to other people. In that division, she is top 4. But in the horsewomen, she's number 4.
I mean, there was definitely something that felt off about this match on SmackDown. There were like some timing things. I don't know if it was like obviously it's Kairi Sane's first match back in WWE. So yeah, there was a lot of like just weird transitions. A lot of stuff just looked clunky.
But it's, I mean, if you go back, it's usually Flair who's doing the clunky stuff.
I mean, listen, that's definitely a take. That's why we brought you on here.
Yeah. You know, we're 73. This will be episode 74, 73 episodes in. And the podcast has basically just been Patrick and I agreeing on everything, or, you know, him converting me. Basically, he's converted me to liking people that I hated in the past. So just through sheer relentlessness and him talking about certain people, I'm like, okay, well, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
Oh, I'll be full of your hot takes. Don't worry.
There is something. I mean, listen, if you look like in the Sasha Bailey match at TakeOver, I mean, that's an all-time. People still talk about that match. Charlotte really hasn't had any standout matches that don't involve someone else from the four horsewomen. Whereas, like, the other women, I mean, we saw Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné had good matches in Japan recently. Like, a lot of it, too, I think, is just like Charlotte is just because of the last name.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
She has been just at the top.
And the look, too. I mean, she
does have a look. She is the biggest of those women. She looks the most physically imposing because she is. I
mean, you're right about her promo skills. Her promo skills are lacking.
The fans have never responded to Charlotte the way they responded to Becky.
Oh.
They've never responded to Charlotte the way they've responded to Bailey in the past. Now, obviously, Bailey's in her heel run now, so it's a little bit different. The fans have never responded to.
We're gonna lose that here shortly, I think.
Well, I think so. Yeah, I think that there's a turn coming eventually, and yeah, I guess we'll get into that. But yeah, and also the fans have never responded to Charlotte the way they've responded to Sasha. So I mean, that is something. But yeah, this match was a little bit clunky. And like did we talk about Crown Jewel?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. Even going back to like I thought the Kairi Sane, like the Crown Jewel, that was just kind of.
I like that they explained it, but I loved it. And then this is where I was talking about with the history matters. I love that Bailey was like, hey, look, I whipped that chick's ass last time she was around here.
Yeah.
I ain't sure this is the right move for me.
Yeah.
Also, let's just talk about the elephant in the room. Why do all the Asian people got to be together? Why can't they, like, it's literally.
I mean, like, you're saying that like that's not how wrestling works.
I know. That's just always how like. You could see this coming, like, oh, if anybody's going to turn, it's going to be Asuka. Like, it'll be Asuka because.
But again, history on that one again because they had the tag team partnership.
But it's just like every time you see it, you're like, man, everybody like, what is it? What's the Street Profits and Bobby Lashley?
Well, I mean, the Hurt Business,
and like it's just the same. Like I don't know. I don't see just another faction that just has like a black dude in it, or just like an Asian in it that's not like Tozawa and Alpha Academy. That's fantastic. Great.
Yeah, this is WWE. Obviously, AEW is all over the place.
Well, I mean, you got the Judgment Day. You got a variety of people there. You got
one.
You got a Puerto Rican gentleman. You got Dominic. You got Rhea. You got the Irish dude.
That's true. So maybe they're good in some departments, and then just like
they're officially the UN of the WWE.
Yeah.
So real quick before we move on, let's talk about your Shotzi comment.
Oh, that was hilarious. Her running down that ramp, coming in there to kick some butt, trying to rip off that jacket with her little noodle arms, just running with the spikes.
Shotzi's not great. So that's. I mean, she's not. I mean. I think she shaved her hair because of what her sister.
Yeah, I respect that.
And she can have a cool look. I love the tank thing, but like she's not. That's all she's got. She's got
and her howl.
That's true, but other than that, they're not. I don't know if there's enough great women wrestlers in WWE to have them split across different brands, but you kind of have to.
I think
it is when you get Shotzi that has to come in and run in. That's when you kind of like, oh, maybe we're spreading ourselves a little too thin.
I mean, because you already had Belair out there. I mean, who else do you have on that roster?
On SmackDown, I don't know if there is another. I mean,
you got the I guess Chelsea Green and Piper will show up, so they wouldn't be there.
Yeah,
B-Fab, she wouldn't have shown up.
Yeah,
Zelina Vega, but she was already,
She has her own thing going on. So, yeah.
She's got her own drama.
It's kind of like, oh, we got one person. And it makes sense because she's got her thing with Bailey. But, like.
And this is gonna be a question I ask twice here tonight. Do you think the Asuka turn was too soon?
No, because what are they? They're probably gonna do a women's War Games match, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, you're setting up for it. No, you could kind of see it. I mean, when Asuka got brought out SmackDown, you're like, all right, well, they're gonna do something because
Yeah, what's the point?
yeah, and Asuka works better as just sort of a chaotic personality.
So they've got Bailey, Io, Asuka. Is Dakota cleared to do anything?
But they have Kyrie.
Kyrie,
Sane.
that's right. I forgot about her.
And so how many is that?
That's 4. It's typically 5, right?
It's typically 5, but they might do a 4.
Yeah, that's what we discussed last week was that right now War Games was set up for 4-on-4 for the dudes, but then we can get to what happened at the end of Raw. in a little
Then they
while.
might do the women's, might just be 4.
Yeah,
Or they might, I don't know, they could pull somebody from Raw or something like that.
yeah.
But
So let's, next segment is Kevin Owens does not own a tie.
He doesn't have to borrow that sucker.
That was funny.
he was fantastic
He was.
throughout the whole night.
Classic
he made
KO.
it just SmackDown. When it's good, it's such a pleasure to watch because it's 2 hours. It flies by, and KO on commentary was just
It's a nice Friday evening.
yeah,
Hey, it's been a long week. Let's pour a cocktail and
yeah,
chill.
yeah.
And that's one of the things I was noticing just because SmackDown, when it was done, I was like, oh, crap, that was 2 hours.
Yeah.
Collision and Rampage. Rampage is what, an hour?
Yeah.
And it feels like an hour.
Yeah.
Collision felt like a Raw.
Yeah.
And Raw feels like 2 Raws.
Yeah. Yeah. Raw is forever in the slog of this thing's 3 hours.
Yeah.
We got to stretch some stuff out here.
Yeah.
No,
good.
KO's great. And also, like we talk about all the time, man, like that's why he's in that position in WWE is because he can be in the main event scene. He can give you comedy if you need to. He can fill in for commentary. Like he can do all sorts of things. They still are probably going to get around to him and Sami Zayn at WrestleMania.
Well, he's
I would
suspended
think.
now. He's officially suspended.
Yeah, there's that.
Quote unquote.
Also like that, where he was like, I'm going to go get suspended. So
Did you see the backstage thing?
what was the back?
They did it. It was one of these web exclusive
Okay,
things
yeah.
where he's back there talking with one of I don't remember who the interviewer was, but he's just talking about how the tie's wet and stuff, and
Yeah.
Nick Aldis comes up and he's giving him the tie, and he's like, "You're gonna get suspended." He's like, "What? I'm not the one who put water on your tie. I'm sorry."
Yeah.
He's like, "No, you weren't supposed to get physical," and he's like, "Oh, you saw that. I was kind of hoping you didn't see that kind of thing." So he's got officially suspended. Does this lead to him coming back to blame Sammy for the trade? Is this the spark?
I mean,
It could be. They probably will play it off. I would imagine these two get physical in the Royal Rumble. Would be my guess how you get to it. Because I don't think they're going to keep to this brand split once WrestleMania season gets around. There'll be guys that are just be flying in black hoodies coming
yeah,
through the
because it
crowd.
lasted all of about a week or two this year, the quote unquote brand split.
They've done better at it recently.
I mean, you get the
These
champions
last
that
couple
can
weeks.
pop back and
The
forth
champions,
sometimes,
yeah.
and people that invade get yelled at.
Yeah. But because if you don't do Kevin and Sammy at WrestleMania, what do either one of those guys do?
I mean, right? Because we know that the assumption I'm assuming is Logan Paul versus LA Knight.
Yeah, I think that's foregone.
So
at this point.
you're tying up LA Knight. I'm sorry, yeah, LA Knight with Grayson Waller, which
Yeah.
kind of disappointed me. LA Knight's promo on that one was on fire. He had touches of Flair, he had touches of Rock, he had touches of a whole bunch of people in there, and I expected a lot more from Grayson Waller other than him just smiling and eating a big old crap sandwich.
Yeah. I've gone back and forth on Grayson Waller. I think my stock's a little bit down on him now. Anybody that wears shorts to the ring like that, I don't think you're going to get over.
John Cena would disagree with you.
But John Cena was blue jean shorts. This is like, these are basketball shorts, like straight. Cena
Gym
was
shorts,
jorts.
Kevin
You know?
Owens was basketball shorts, wasn't he?
Yeah, but Kevin Owens has the kick pads that go all the way down in the leggings.
Okay.
Like, I get particular about this kind of stuff. I'm telling it's like CM Punk in Ring of Honor, and that's kind of it. For dudes that got over in straight, just like basketball shorts.
I'm trying to think who else. Because Samoa Joe is like kickboxing.
Samoa
Yeah.
Joe is in Muay Thai shorts. Those are different too. They got little cuts in them.
I'm trying to think.
That's it.
I can't pull anybody.
They're just the John Cena shorts. Jorts, jean shorts, Ring of Honor, CM Punk shorts.
Because I was even thinking about AEW. I'm like, Darby Allin wears jean shorts, but he's got those leggings.
Yeah, he's got
he wears black leggings.
Yep, you can get over in pants.
Okay. Man,
Not going to get over. He also doesn't do anything because everything he does, you're like, well, The Miz just does it better.
And that's I 100% agree with you. But I think eventually, because Miz is on the tail end of where he's going to be.
Yeah.
So I definitely think he is getting groomed to be that Miz style character.
Yeah.
I think he was hotter before they got in with Austin Theory, and that makes me sad because I really want Theory to succeed, but he's not as bad as others, but he's mid card. He's at best right now.
Well, you're just waiting for it to click with Theory, and I don't know what it is.
He's only 24, 25?
True, and you can get, but like
Rhea Ripley's that same age.
The amount of screen time that he's gotten, you would hope to have seen. He's really not improved that much from where he was at when he was chasing the golden egg with Vince McMahon to like where he's at now.
And when you have people like, and mind you, I hate the dude. At the same time, he's athletically gifted. When you get people like Logan Paul coming in and just outshining him left and right, you get people like Bad Bunny, these people that aren't classically, been
Logan
there.
Paul's had 8 matches total and just has put on.
Yeah, and promo after promo, Logan Paul, like he gets that character, and it's like you just watch Austin Theory and like he's trying, but everybody's just kind of sitting on their hands, and that's worse. That's the worst you can do. Like at least if they were booing him, he would be getting over as a heel. But like he's kind of a non-entity.
Yeah.
The best thing that happened to him was getting punched in the face at the same time. That's
yeah, and you got to think that like there's an LA Knight Kevin Owens team up coming somewhere where they take on those two guys,
but they're just going to eat a loss.
They're just going to get pinned. Yeah, they're not beating any one of those two guys. So I don't know. I would buy more stock in Austin Theory than I would Grayson Waller, because I think Theory is better in the ring. I think he's the better wrestler, but still, like these two guys, I don't know.
He was really good in NXT. He was. He had a solid heel persona. He came across as a bigger star than he is now.
Yeah.
And I could say the same thing about the Creeds. And I go back to some of those Creed matches. You want to see them do stupid strength things.
Yeah.
Them ripping off steel cages and stuff like that. It's fun and stupid at the same time.
Yeah.
But he didn't translate.
Yeah, something's missing.
The next note we have says LWO.
I love this segment.
Yeah, we finally got the turn from Escobar, right?
100. I love that Ray, the Eternal Optimist, out there, talking about how it's his fault, and you get my man Carlito come out here tell you this is a dude that doesn't want to be cool. What's up, Ray?
Yeah,
and the fun that came out of that.
The only thing that, again, we talked about last week that annoyed the shit out of me, the brass knuckle spot where Santos just lays it down, right? But then Carlito alluded a little bit to the fact that, hey, maybe he did it on purpose. Okay, that's a cool wrinkle, but I feel like commentary has to bring that up at Crown Jewel.
At Crown Jewel.
Where Michael Cole or somebody goes, hey, Santos, what's he doing laying the... And then you explain it away like, oh, it's a mental mistake, maybe. Like you try to... At least you're calling attention to it. You can't call attention to it...
After the fact.
And this is where I'm asking that same question that I asked about Asuka. I think this one I love... I've been waiting for Escobar to go back to his roots of being that jackass. But I would have liked it to have been more slow burn with this one a little bit, just because it was like, you did this. And it's immediately, okay, yeah. We're going to fight.
Yeah. Which kind of seems like those are the type of things you probably do when like you realize something's not working. And you just immediately like pivot because like we talked about, I don't know, the LWO, I don't think they have been a big of a draw as well. WWE anticipated
Ray
them to
outshines
be.
Everybody out there.
Yeah, especially now if Escobar's out, then
like, yeah. So there's Ray, there's Escobar, of course, Selena Vega. I literally don't know the other two guys.
What is it? Phoenix and Wild?
Zero clue. I don't know. Do they wrestle?
I think
I don't even know.
They were
0 for 3 in here.
Yeah.
they were back in NXT again.
Yeah.
They were Legado del Fantasma.
Okay.
And they were
right.
they are a solid tag team.
Okay.
But they are the forgotten duo in that group,
Yeah,
unfortunately, because Ray outshines everybody in that group. And Carlito is I mean, it's that nostalgia factor of him. And he's the biggest of them,
He
obviously.
still is fucking huge.
Yeah.
And I am so looking forward to Escobar and him tearing it up some, because I think they will be able to have some good matches out of the two of them.
Yeah, I mean, it gives Santos an opportunity. Let's see what they do with it. At least gives him a sense of direction, where he was kind of just like, he was the dude in the faction with Ray. Now he at least has some kind of direction. I don't know how far they go with it, though. Anytime you start doing that gaslighting of, you made me do this as I'm beating you and then drop kicking your leg and taking you out, you're always going to hook me, because I love it when they try to just make it seem like they're doing the right thing for this. I wish it was a little bit more vicious, though, was the only thing. I wish the turn was not just like a hit in the back, but like a crazed.
He just went after him.
Well, you could also argue that he didn't turn. Ray turned on him first. Ray pushed him.
That is true. I don't know. It just,
he started it.
just the beatdown was kind of like, eh.
I mean, the thing he started was watching the guy who had accused him of being the betrayer get his ass whipped for a while.
Yeah.
And I understand that. Who doesn't want to see somebody get their ass whipped after you talk trash to him?
Yeah. But at least they tried to explain away the brass knuckle spot, but it's just you got to do that before. That has to be happening on Crown Jewel, where one of the commentators, some of the announcers have to bring it up. And you just explain it away at Crown Jewel, because Escobar's still a good guy. Like, hey, he made a mistake. Like, and then Escobar has to like defend himself in that segment.
He didn't. He just sucked it up.
He didn't even get a chance to like talk on the mic.
And that's where I'm saying I think this should have been drawn a little bit more. But
like they might have been like, we don't have any, like, we're running out of room.
Well, I mean,
we just got to do it.
We got it. I'm assuming this is leading to Ray Escobar WrestleMania.
Something like that, if not sooner.
Because, I mean, they've been trying to do a Ray versus mask thing for a long time, and Escobar used to do masks.
I mean, you
could
even get him on the next pay-per-view, probably. Well, no, it's coming up in 2 weeks.
I think that's where they're going to let him build a little bit with Carlito, and then Ray does that miraculous comeback, probably costs him something in the Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
So
I still would say Dominic Mysterio as the leader of LWO would have made way more sense, but I
would buy that.
Some leadership issues.
It would have the pop for LWO and just their presence on the show would have been a lot better if he was the head of it. And maybe he still will be. That's still.
I mean, Judgment Days is about to do some stuff here.
Yeah.
So next up, Cedric Alexander versus Dragon Lee. I know this was Stephen because we got a text about this one.
Did y'all end up watching, or did you fast forward?
Yeah, I
watched this one.
Yeah.
This was AEW on WWE
for like 7 minutes. Yep.
Yeah, it wasn't long because you were like, "Oh, that's worth the price of admission," and I was like, "Oh shit, that was what?
That was quick." But
it's done.
But that was the best match. I mean, that's a style, and the crowd got up for it.
And
go figure, good wrestling gets people on their feet.
Dragon Lee is a solid wrestler. Cedric Alexander is dramatically unappreciated. If you go back and watch him through the Cruiserweight Classic thing that they did, so many years ago, when Triple H came out there and was like, "You're staying," and then they just kind of, there might have been somebody behind scenes. I don't know who that could have been saying this ain't the guy, but Triple H believes in the dude, and you're seeing it.
I would make a trade in a heartbeat if I was Tony Khan. Wardlow for Cedric Alexander.
Don't know.
And I would do that. I wouldn't. Both of those guys are they're good on their own, or they have the potential to be good. They're just like
in the wrong,
and they're in the wrong system. Like if it was basketball, they're in the wrong systems, and they need to just switch places, and they would be, I think, much bigger stars.
I think you will see more out of Cedric Alexander in WWE than you would see of him out in AEW.
True, but
I'll get to that reason why here shortly.
Yeah, at least in AEW, we could at least see him do like these matches more, and he would get 20 minutes. And also in AEW, like you never know, he could catch fire. Like he could be a guy that the crowd just like immediately gets behind. Now, whether Tony Khan would run down that route. The thing about Wardlow is like AEW can't have a lot of monsters, and they already got enough. Mm-hmm. And out of all the monsters they have, he's the least interesting one.
100%.
So at least send him over to the other place where maybe Triple H and that WWE magic can do something with him. And Cedric Alexander, if I'm Tony Khan, I get a guy who like I can just throw out and have a random 5-star match. whenever.
I think he would get lost in the shuffle because he would fall into the same mold that you got with Swerve.
Probably, but Swerve was also at the top of that card in AEW.
Yeah, Swerve. It took him a minute to I think it took him a minute to get the AEW crowd behind him, but I mean, I would say he's more than there now for sure.
But yeah, I'd make that trade. I wish there were like little trades like that.
If I was Triple H, I wouldn't make that trade.
They might not. But then I would ask, what do you want for? What do you want for? What's the market for Cedric? What do I got to give up? Who you want? I would just put Wardlow out there because he doesn't.
I think Wardlow would thrive in WWE.
I'd trade Lance Archer.
I think Lance Archer would get lost in the shuffle like a Karrion Kross.
Yeah, he just disappeared. Is he injured or is he just? And now
he's supposedly they've been saying he's coming back, but it keeps getting pushed and pushed and pushed. Yeah. So I don't know.
Karrion Kross debuted and stared down Roman Reigns and nothing happened. He just went away.
Well, he was wearing a gladiator skirt at that point too.
No, this was when he came back. When he had the black, because it was Karrion, Drew McIntyre, and Roman Reigns, and
I don't even remember that.
See, there you go. Karrion was in the leather jacket. This is also a nitpicky thing. No one ever gets. You can't just wear your trunks to the ring with no like elbow pads, no wrist tape. You have to have some kind of entrance gear. That's enough. So in this podcast, we learned you have to have entrance gear. If you're going to wear trunks, tape your wrist, have an elbow pad, have a black jacket. And you can't wear basketball shorts unless you're CM Punk. And that's...
I mean, Karrion Kross, I want him to be something more than he is, but right now he's just an entrance.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, and he's not even the most interesting part of the entrance.
Oh, 100% not.
So last up for SmackDown, it says, we kind of touched on this a minute ago, Waller versus Knight, expected more from them.
I did.
On the mic from Waller, and then in quotations, pleasure, Jimmy.
That was the best thing out of LA Knight's mouth is when he was going through the list of give him a raise, give him that, pleasure him however you want. And I died at that point. I'm like, oh my God, this is
LA Knight's a shit, man.
Yeah.
I mean, is he a ripoff? Yeah. I don't give a shit though. Who cares? It's working. I like it.
He's one of those, when he was Eli Drake and when was just touring, when AEW was first popping off, I was into MLW and NWA. Those were like the two shows that I was like heavily watching because those were, to me, were the best shows that were on TV because WWE at that point was just shoveling garbage out.
Yeah.
And it was Ricky Starks and Eli Drake and Aaron Stevenson. I can't even remember what his stupid name was when he was Darren Sandow.
Oh yeah, Damien Sandow. Yeah.
And this other dude that's dead now, unfortunately, called The Question, and they were just tearing up these little independent promotions. To see him graduate and to get the limelight, both him and Starks get the limelight that they deserve is so great.
Yeah, I mean, took us a minute to get there. But, the last few months we've been hardcore LA Knight fans. So.
Well, it took everybody.
Sure.
I mean, the responses were not what they were 6 months ago.
And he's got a solid look. I mean,
yeah.
He's got a solid look. He's got the music it fits the character right now.
Yeah, it fits.
And I bless Kevin Owens with his tie wearing butt when he's like, LA. Oh, he's from Los Angeles. I get this now.
Yeah.
Dumbest saying ever, but
But like, when Roman Reigns calls LA Knight, like, oh, you're just cosplaying a redneck version of my cousin. It's like, yeah, but it worked. That's kind of why we love it. That's not an insult the way you think it is.
I mean, most of what you hear in music these days, I mean, there's a lot of original stuff out there, but there's plenty of throwbacks.
I mean, the whole appeal of Greta Van Fleet right now is the fact that they sound like
Led Zeppelin. Yeah.
It's like, that's why people dig it. Like, you think it's a bad thing, but that's actually not.
Led Zeppelin only had so many records. You can only listen to them so many times.
It's going to be a hot take because now you stop that crap.
I mean, I'm saying Greta Van Fleet, I'm not necessarily a huge fan, but like that is the appeal for a lot of people.
I'm not a Greta fan because I'm not a huge Zeppelin fan. Like, some Zeppelin is
but much like LA Knight's fan base, Greta Van Fleet's fan base is younger people who necessarily weren't around when Zeppelin were playing or weren't watching wrestling when The Rock was popping off. So to them, it is it does feel new.
Yeah,
that is part of his appeal.
But to get back to that heart of that note is he tore Grayson Waller up about being a creep. You know, you got your $5 pedophile haircut. You're not allowed in schools. You sound like an STD. You know, and Grayson Waller just sitting there smiling and trying not to break because he's laughing at the crowd.
Yeah, sure. Well, we're about at the halfway point at this point, so we need to get into Raw for a second before we move on to AEW. So notes from Monday Night Raw was the Bloodline leadership. There's some dissension there. It looks like Damian Priest claims he's the leader at one point.
But then the real leader corrected what that leadership role meant.
Yeah.
He's the leader of the War Game team.
Yeah.
Otherwise, shut up.
He's not. He can call himself that's what he is. He's not. Though.
Right.
There's one huge star in that group, and it's
Finn Balor.
Well, Finn Balor's had his time though.
Sure.
Yeah, it is.
But hold on. There's 3 stars in that group. I'll argue there's 3.
So Tinfoil Hat, I think they're piping in noise for Dominic Mysterio. I know
they did.
They're not. He's not as hot as what he was.
I could tell when it switched on.
They're piping it in.
Yeah,
so you think
it sounded way different than it had any time before.
I think the crowd has not died down on him, but I think enough people have come around to like how good he is that they're not booing him like that anymore. And WWE wants to keep it up, so they're piping in crowd noise.
Yeah, like we talked about it before, but like I could really tell they just it was something in the quality of it. I was like, this doesn't sound right.
But Damian Priest is the most imposing of that group on the male side. But he is the least valuable of that group.
Yeah, he's the least interesting out of all of them. At least Finn Balor has a track record and can paint his body up cool. Rhea Ripley, she's a superstar. Dominic Mysterio is incredible as a heel. And Damian Priest is just if he was the size of Finn Balor, he wouldn't matter. He'd be JD McDonough.
I think, see, you're saying that like being JD McDonough would be a bad thing, but if they actually unleash JD McDonough like he had been prior to coming up to the main roster, I think you would like JD McDonough a hell of a lot more.
Oh yeah, Damian Priest is also the worst wrestler of that group too. Yeah. He just happens to be the one that's holding the briefcase, which again, like I've talked about, I don't buy him as any kind of heavyweight champion.
I'm going to touch on that briefcase here in a little bit.
Well, let's do it now because we only got one other note for Raw before we move into.
You are saying that briefcase is the most worthless thing on him in the sense that he's goofy with it, he runs off with it, whatever. I would argue that MJF is the same position on AEW that Damian Priest is on Raw with that briefcase.
Ooh, all right. Well, let's hear it.
Where's his belt?
Oh, well, that's a Tony Khan. I'll blame Tony Khan for that all day long.
That belt is MJF's briefcase.
Yeah.
Because at this point, I am a firm believer of I wish they would allow this in wrestling storylines. Jay White has that belt. I guess Jay White's the champ. Might as well start defending it because if MJF ain't tough enough to take it away from him, he ain't the champ.
It's just that part of the story's gone on a little too long. They've done it before, but they've resolved it fairly quickly. But yeah, in the same way, and this is the thing we talked about last week, if this were, for real, then Tony Khan would be like, Jay, this ain't your belt. This is not how this works.
Yeah, you would just strip, in reality, you would just strip Jay, give the belt back or you don't have the match.
Much like they did with Sami Zayn in the briefcase, give it back. But MJF ain't got that belt. That is his briefcase.
And it goes back to, WWE, for what they lack in wrestling quality, they make up for in storyline quality. At least it makes sense. And AEW is the complete opposite.
And I would argue that the AEW World Championship is the least important belt on that program. You had a great match with Daniel Garcia. Yeah. Great match. It was the opener match. When was the last time you saw the main title on a Raw or on a SmackDown be defended in the opening match? That's your main event.
Seth Rollins did it with Sami Zayn.
That was a final match.
And that goes.
Was it?
Yeah. But yeah, that was the match. But
oh, you're right.
But SmackDown and Raw have the luxury of people are watching that program most times to completion, and the ratings kind of show that. They're popping MJF off because he's the biggest star in that company, and they want you to. They're putting him at the beginning, but I get what you're saying. Putting him at the beginning makes you think that he's not a big star because he's not main event in these shows. It's just AEW is not in a great spot right now in terms of like popularity. They're obviously not as hot as what they were, say, 2.5 years ago.
MJF as a face is what's killing him right now. Because as a heel, he's interesting. As a face, his novelty is worn off because the thing that made him interesting as a face is now a teleprompter, a television set. Adam Cole is what made him fun as a face.
Yeah, but that crowd is not going to let MJF be.
Ratings are showing that that MJF segment was one of the worst watched ones.
Was it?
Yeah.
They have a lot of problems, but I don't know if I would not lay it. MJF's problem would be 20th on the list of what that company has problems with. Yeah. I think it goes back to Tony Khan. I mean, that's like AEW's problem is that they do not know how to tell stories, and they are too reliant on Swerve Strickland and Penta being out there and putting on a great match, which is cool. But like we've talked about, that only appeals to a certain demographic of wrestling fans.
Yeah, it's only going to get you so far.
Clearly, because it's not done well. Their ratings have plummeted.
10,000 separates them from NXT at this stage.
Yeah, and that's an issue. That's a big issue.
And with MJF, assuming they go the route they do with Samoa Joe being the tag partner.
Yeah.
If he has to get the belt for the man, you're telling me that he's not as important as your champion as somebody else.
Yeah, I think their belt thing with Jay White has been a misfire, and I wish they would have corrected that. There's no excuse. Like, when you have MJF and Kenny Omega and you call it a dream match, we talked about this on the podcast, and the belt's not there, you can't have. I mean, you cannot have.
Kenny
that.
should have been wrestling Jay at that point.
Yeah, the whole, and I think it goes back to. Listen, they still had plans that CM Punk would be in this company when they were making all this stuff.
Yeah,
because CM Punk was calling himself the real world champion. MJF called himself the real world champion. Like they're just doing the same thing. They're just kind of putting different players for the chess pieces.
They said that somewhere in that I guess that was that Jay White promo where he said the real, and I was like,
so again, this comes back to Triple H Triple H is calling the shots in WWE, but he's not the only. There's a team of writers. You can go on the WWE careers website right now, and there's writing jobs. Like there's probably a dozen people in those rooms putting stuff up on whiteboards, hashing stuff out. Like some writers
Triple
are dedicated.
H is the one that signs off on it.
Triple H is signing off on it, but he's taking ideas from everybody. He's taking ideas from the wrestlers. That's how you get and we skipped this, but I'll mention it briefly. That's how you get people like the Alpha Academy who are mid-card acts, but they become entertaining because there is somebody there in that writer's room who has Alpha Academy and is talking with those guys and girls, and they're putting together stuff. And Alpha Academy runs through the whole show, and it's cohesive, and you get this funny little bit with Tozawa, and then you can get this stuff with Chad Gable. AEW has none of that. There's not one single. They're top heavy, and because they're top heavy, there's no cohesion to the show.
I think there's another issue that I'll get into there as well, but once we get over there. But you when you're talking about that mid card because Imperium is a solid act in there, that's a mid card. DIY, once they get their feet under them, I think they'll be a solid act. You got The Miz. You got, and it annoys me because I think he's overhyped, Bronson Reed, who I can't take seriously when he goes face to face with Ivar, who then has Valhalla step up to face off of him, and she's the same size as Bronson Reed. How are you a colossal when she's the same size as you?
Yeah. Well, I say we can switch over into Collision now because you just mentioned the Alpha Academy thing. Unless you want to.
No, that's all I said about. I mean, that's what AEW doesn't have any of that. Like I talk about this guy all the time, but like a guy like Miro, who it looks like now he's going to be in some kind of feud with Andrade. Like Miro has one pitch, and if he is not a Titanic monster, he has no other place on the card. Nowhere else you can put him.
He has comedy ability. I mean, Rusev Day got over really well. I mean, that was a solid gimmick with him and Adrian English.
Yeah, but they're not. I don't know if AEW would I don't know if Rusev Day, if you just put that over to AEW, I don't know if it translates as well. Like there are some things that just aren't going to translate because the fan bases are different and like the presentation of the show is different. Because like I don't even know, is there any comedy in AEW right now?
All of it.
Well,
Come on now.
Every last bit of it.
I mean, there are guys like Dalton Castle.
There are 3 people that
They're
are doing
sporadic.
comedy in AEW right now. 3 people.
Who are the 3?
Samoa Joe.
Okay, yeah, it's not as blatant comedy, but it is funny because he's a badass. Yes, he's doing.
Swerve and Hangman.
Oh, you think that's comedy?
No, I said those are not. Those are the only 3 that are not doing comedy.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Everything else
Yeah.
is comedy.
I'll agree to disagree on that one, but
I mean, there's solid wrestling in said comedy,
Sure.
but who am I supposed to take serious on that? MJF is a comedy act right now.
yeah, I mean, he has been more than usual.
Jay White, Juice Robinson, comedy act. Guns are a comedy act.
I wouldn't call Jay and Juice is comedy. Jay's not.
Jay is a straight man to Juice.
I'll give you that. That's true.
Sure.
Yeah, but yeah.
And the Guns will always be goofy with their little,
Yeah.
their finger guns, because I mean that's always going to be goofy. That's kid stuff. You got Big Bill and Stark. Are they serious?
They're pitched as serious title holders, but they do have comedic. I mean, Ricky Starks when he goes on people is funny. Big Bill is all the same thing. Big Bill is saving grace is that he's 7 feet tall and you can't teach that. So, and Roderick Strong's doing comedy, and I think
Sure.
doing comedy well.
I'm not arguing that.
I think he is. This is the most interesting Roderick Strong's ever been in his career, which is like crazy because he's damn near 40.
And but he's a talented ass wrestler.
Yeah.
But I would back you 100%. This is the most fun he has been, because everywhere else he's just been vanilla.
And it's just like you watch like the Roderick Strong thing.
There's a lot of, now that I'm thinking about it, Tony Storm is comedic.
Yeah.
Now that I'm thinking,
So there, but for
there's
some
more
reason,
more than AEW or more
but I
than
think
WWE.
when I think of I guess the comedy at Tony Storm and Roderick Strong are the 2 that like jump off to me, but they're not. Roddy's a mid-card act, but Tony Storm is not being presented as a mid-card act. I guess when I was trying to bring it with Alpha Academy is like, there's nobody that like is pitched the way that Alpha Academy is pitched as like lower mid-card guys you can kind of sometimes elevate. The AEW has none of that. Like Tony Storm, she's going to be a champion here probably by the weekend.
Yeah.
Like if it's top heavy with stars and there's nobody kind of underneath that's kind of balancing out the show.
And I think this is, let's just jump into this of why I think this is. You've got what? 345 different wrestlers in AEW?
There's a lot. There's a lot.
And yet you're using enhancement talent nonstop in that place. The Bali Boys, the Workhorsemen, the guy who Powerhouse Hobb went through that nobody even knows his name on these 2 shows that happened this week.
I mean, they still do a lot of that with WWE too, though.
They haven't been lately.
There's not a lot of enhancement. There's not a lot of squash matches on. But I get what he's alluding to is the fact that it's so top heavy. Then you can't use all the people at one time because nobody can eat a loss.
And you've got people down there that aren't getting airtime that you could, in theory, make them, legitimate mid card guys eating losses to top guys, but they're not because you're bringing in people you don't even need on a roster that has way too many people already, to the point where you're not cutting people, which they probably should on a whole bunch, but you're letting people like the Butcher, the Blade, the Bunny, all these people get non-renewed.
Yeah.
Who have looks. I mean, that tag team should have been successful in that brand. But again, they came in as a non-comedy act and a comedy wrestling group.
I still like AEW more than as a whole, more than WWE, just because again, like I respond more to the wrestling, and it just is a luxury that like you can throw Swerve and Penta out on a Wednesday and they tear the house down, but like you should not be, as a creative, you shouldn't be reliant on that, and they're reliant on that
100% because they're throwing matches together, hoping they stick with no build up, no anything. I mean, I get there was like a momentary build up of that Kenny and MJF match of you're going to beat my thing. That was a throwaway line on a throwaway show that happened, that was 30 seconds.
with no belt in the middle of it, which is still kind of unforgivable. Yeah, I mean, we've said it till the cows come home. Old TK needs a writing room. He needs other
But
people.
He has it. They say Daniel Bryan is in that room.
But listen, just because you're a wrestler doesn't mean you're a creative. These are two completely different jobs.
Chris Jericho is supposedly in that room.
And again, like, there's a reason why WWE goes and gets
Professional writers. Frankie
people
Prinze Jr.
People who have written on sitcoms, people who have done other kinds of things. Like Bryan Danielson is fantastic in the ring. He's the in-ring GOAT, but like that's a completely separate skill set from what trying to write a wrestling show is.
So we've covered the enhancement talent. We skipped over the Hangman promo.
I love that promo. I thought that was a solid promo for him. He showed passion. He can't win.
I don't think he can win. Also, when I talked,
either.
the beatdown was vicious, which I liked.
Yeah.
It made sense. Like,
Yeah.
you broke into the house. Now, okay, I'm going to try to absolutely kill you.
Yeah.
But he cannot win that match because that story is dead in the water because Hangman has nothing to him outside of that reactionary thing that he got from Swerve.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Swerve should be. You should protect that man at all costs because he is the one thing that you have that no other company has. Nobody company has a dude that can mesh with the worlds of hip hop and be a hip hop supervillain. I mean, he has a look. He moves like nobody else moves. Because realistically, with AEW, all their top guys, you can kind of find an equivalent in WWE, right? I mean, Moxley is kind of Roman and Seth, obviously. Like, Swerve is the only guy where you try to look at the other show. Like, find me a dude that looks like Swerve in WWE that moves like Swerve. And I guess you'd say Carmelo Hayes, but he's not on NXT, right? I mean, he's not on the main roster.
Give it a hot minute. He will be.
And I saw you have on here, like, who do you think AEW's best acquisition is?
You're going to hate who I say.
Well, I think, listen, from a business standpoint, I think it is Jon Moxley. But from a talent standpoint, who has the most potential going forward? Like, I've said this before, if you gave WWE the AEW roster and be like, you get to pick one, they're picking Swerve Strickland. They want Swerve no back? Doubt in my mind, they're picking Swerve Strickland. I think they're kicking themselves that guy is not on WWE right now because he makes too much sense. In this modern day era, social media, hip hop, rules the day. He's such a big star that he left and Hit Row became, they're not
Absolutely
there anymore.
not, yeah.
No, they were garbage without him.
If you called up Triple H and be like, hey, Paul, who would you like from AEW? Be like, hey, Swerve Strickland, let's take him.
Okay. So what's your answer?
Nigel McGuinness.
Nigel McGuinness has been great on commentary.
He is the best. If I think if WWE could do something again and not get rid of somebody, that would be the only one. Swerve, maybe. I'm not arguing that. I think Swerve is a powerful talent. I don't think he'd be used properly in AEW. No. But Nigel McGuinness is one I think they would try to get back in a heartbeat because he brings so much storytelling to that thing, which is what they need on that show.
Yeah.
That it's beyond comparison.
Also, Collision, and we talked about when Collision first started. We were like, "Oh, this feels way different than Dynamite. Like everything felt kind of different." Now it's just kind of the same. They're kind of the same. There's not a lot of differences. And again, I think a lot of that goes back to the fact that CM Punk is not there anymore. Mm-hmm. But like, really, on Collision, the only thing you're getting Andrade, and you're getting House of Black. But like, Ricky Starks and Big Bill show up on Dynamite. Mm-hmm. The Young Bucks have shown up on Collision and on Dynamite.
And see, I would argue that the House of Black is not your comedy group either.
No, House of Black, no. Yeah. No, and they're over.
Yep.
Again, like, it's not the talent's problem in AEW. They got too much of it.
And see, that's the creation. You say you like creative. But the two of them is the storytelling versus the wrestling, and the wrestling appeals to you. And I love the wrestling, but I want to know why somebody's getting punched in the mouth. I can watch somebody getting punched in the mouth all day long, but I want to know why that guy deserved to get punched in the mouth.
Yeah. I mean, well, we were talking about Swerve and Penta having a banger last week. It was a great match, but it's not one you're going to go back to because the story wasn't there, right? And they don't all have to have a long build up, but you need at least a little bit of something.
or at least lead to something.
Maybe.
If they revisit this and, to build off that, that's great. That's some history in the process. But this is a Dynamite thing, so we didn't necessarily. But that dead eye that Hangman gave to Swerve, worst drop I've ever seen. He pogoed on that table so much.
Oh, well, shit, listen, nobody's doing stunts right anymore. A damn WWE had, what was it, what did we talk about? Who fell off? Seth Rollins?
Yeah.
On the mat?
Yeah.
And the camera caught it? Like, no, everybody's... That's a problem with everyone. Just don't do them anymore. If you've seen Mick Foley fall through the Hell in a Cell and, like, Shane McMahon jump off of the Hell in a Cell, like, there are other ways we can do this kind of thing. But, you just wish that AEW could... And, again, I'm more critical of it. There's sometimes shit things in WWE that I just kind of let slide and it doesn't bother me because, like I've talked about before, like the potential that AEW has, if they just put all the pieces together, holy shit. The talent mixed with the fact that they can do a little bit more edgier stuff because they're not a publicly traded company and they can kind of do. Yep. There are moments in AEW that are genuinely exciting.
Well, the pay-per-view this weekend, we didn't even build in time for running down the card, but the pay-per-views are always top-notch.
I guarantee you MJF and Jay White, the fact we've complained about the story, I guarantee they go out and they put on a fucking
100%.
classic.
I am not arguing that 100%, but
it's got to matter.
It's exactly.
Yeah. Well, we've got a couple of things to touch on real quick. We kind of touched on Roddy a minute ago, but we've got the hashtag No Neck November.
It entertains the hell out of me.
He jumped up again this week, or he actually had the match this week. With Darius. So, and then immediately, as soon as it's done, he's got the neck brace on.
Yeah.
That's
taking him out.
His finisher is one of the best finishers of all time.
He's the master of the backbreaker.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a thing of beauty to watch.
We kind of touched on the MJF versus Priest thing a little while ago, right? So I'm assuming this is you, Stephen. Preston Vance is tapioca pudding.
He is. They do that Collision Open, and they got the Illinois. I'm going to butcher
the faction in Goldberg.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
and they got everybody talking, and you got Roos, who's just full of passion. And then Preston Vance puts his little fat fist out there and says, "Meh, meh, 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 meh."
He looked like he was out of place.
Why is Andrade not in this group? What happened? Did we miss something?
They never explained.
I've watched this show. I ain't missed an episode, and I could not tell you why Andrade's not the fucking leader of this
He still
group.
tweets them. Does that help you?
Again, going back to the consistency and like the writing, like that's not explained.
What happened with Hangman Page's drinking problem? Did they ever solve that?
Yeah, and is Hangman and Young Bucks, are they not still 6-man champions in Ring of Honor?
They lost.
Who they lose to?
Didn't they lose like a couple weeks ago? Am I crazy?
I
feel like they lost to Brian Cage and
Yeah, okay. I want to say that sounds like it was right.
So
too many damn belts over there too.
The Ring of Honor belts don't need to be on. That's a whole different other talking point with AEW.
Yeah, he was just so he looked nervous. He looked out of place, and then he had no passion, nothing. He was just like lumpy pudding.
Again, like somebody like a guy like Roosh. Again, that can be a solid mid-card act.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But Preston Vance is not ready to be a part of that.
Yeah. So
put somebody else in there.
So the last thing, or I can't, is this one or two things? Tony Khan don't give a fuck.
Murder Hawk. So you got Lance Archer come out there, plowing through them security guards, just killing them left and right. Tony Khan, owner of that company, what's he do? Not a damn thing. Over on SmackDown, he bunched some guy after he got water dumped on him, slapped around, and other things happened, got suspended. Why? I know it's two different companies, but at some point, if you're out there murdering your security guards, do something.
It goes back to like you have to establish the reality aspect. Like you cannot do that in a company. The wrestler just can't come out and start beating up security guards and then just have a match. I get that's his gimmick. Yeah. Everybody died, but like you are technically getting paid by this company.
Sure.
You know.
And this kind of goes back into that last thing about the consistency in the statistics in the sense of they don't obey their own rules of this universe. like you have the statistics coming in. Penta came in with his entire, it was like 93 to 55 losses. That is his entire history of AEW. You got other people that come in where they're like 3-5 since this time. Somebody else comes in and all 23, and there's no consistency on how they present anybody.
They have kind of like, at the start of the year, they reset it. It's like 0-0.
But even still, they're not, depending on who it is and who they're trying, what they're trying to tell with their stories is what the number they build.
Sure.
So there's no consistency between it all. If you're gonna use those statistics, use them consistently.
Yeah.
If they're not matching the story you want to tell, fix the damn story.
Yeah. So we get Collision. We get the pay-per-view on Saturday. So Collision is Friday night, which should be interesting. That'll make for a long, like you get SmackDown, Collision, and Rampage.
Head to head.
Rampage
SmackDown
won't really be
head-to-head.
worth watching probably. But one thing I do want to touch on real quick is they featured Dalton Castle the last couple or 2 out of 3 weeks maybe. And the web exclusives with him are absolutely fucking genius. Have you watched those?
Yeah, again, mid-card act that gets over. That's what you need. Like, I would rather have 6 acts like Dalton Castle that are in the mid-card rather than have like, I don't know.
I would love to hear a transcript of what he's saying to the camera on the way down the ramp.
He was. That's what was entrancing me because I'm like, what the? He's like talking about alligators, and the alligators telling him that he is the peacock. I'm like, this. I don't know what your deal is, dude.
It's
but
amazing. Like I didn't know shit about him until just a couple months ago, and
he got over.
Yeah,
it got eventually the crowd like warmed up to him.
Yeah,
again, but it goes back to being consistent. He was just presented as a fucking heel against the Acclaimed.
Yeah,
a week before that, they even brought it up. Like,
yeah,
it just makes no. Makes no sense.
He's a Ring of Honor guy, and you can't put everybody on TV. I get it, but
he shouldn't be a Ring of Honor guy.
Well, Samoa Joe shouldn't be a Ring of Honor guy.
No, like I've said from the jump, Ring of Honor should be used as developmental. Like, as much as I love Nick Wayne,
he's a Ring of Honor guy.
Nick Wayne should probably be in Ring of Honor.
Probably wouldn't be a bad idea.
Claudio shouldn't be in Ring of Honor. Eddie shouldn't be in Ring of Honor.
No, and Dalton's got a match with Eddie this weekend for the Ring of Honor Championship. I think it's this weekend, or is it later on? It's the next pay-per-view.
I don't know.
Makes me kind of want to get Ring of Honor for a month just to watch Dalton and Eddie. I won't, but it makes me kind of want to. I guess I'll watch some highlights on YouTube or something.
So, full gear real quick. Samoa Joe and MJF, is that where we're thinking at this point?
It has to be. It has to be the tag. Like I said last week, if MJF defends those things alone against the Guns, he should lose.
Yeah.
And if he loses that one, he's got to lose the next one because he should have an ass whipping put on him to the point where Jay White can take advantage of it. Otherwise, Jay White is nothing.
That would make narrative sense. Yeah, they probably wouldn't do that. They would probably have MJF retained. But no, I think he has to get the help of Samoa Joe. And
because, the whole point of that, you're building MJF to Adam Cole, I'm assuming. That's the only point of all this. So he's got to go through White, and I don't know what White does after this because he's got nothing going on really. The tags he could lose, but if you're getting Samoa Joe, I think that has to be part of that breakup with Adam Cole. They've screwed themselves on that one.
Yeah, the story with MJF obviously is like the chickens are coming home to roost for all his evil ways. His friends are running out, and now he has to turn towards, the ultimate badass, the ultimate mercenary in Samoa Joe. But again, like, okay, so if they do Joe and MJF beat the Guns for the Ring of Honor titles, you still fall into situations where you got to get those titles off of MJF at some point. And then MJF he wins the world championship. I don't think they're going to reveal who the devil is at this pay-per-view.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. I think they're going to hold. They could, but I think that they would hold off on that.
And this is the long-term storytelling for them. But to me, this is it's dragging. Because there's nothing that's building off of it at this point.
Well, it's the same. It's samey. It's gotten samey at this point. Same old. Like I said last week, if there were more wrinkles to this, like if it
wasn't just a backstage segment,
if the devil was physically present last week, I think that would have thrown a lot of, the devil's at the ramp or whatever.
In a classic case of the Alabama Slam podcast, that's probably what's going to happen tomorrow night on Dynamite. Used to, when we released on Friday, some major shit would pop off on Friday afternoon after we released, and we didn't get to talk about it until the next week, and by then it was old news. So, I mean, that may be what happens tomorrow night. You never know.
Yeah, I mean, they still could do that. Like, at some point, you need to have some of these huge reveals just happen on TV just for the sake of getting people to kind of tune in, that because anything might happen. You can't have all the like cool surprises happen at pay-per-views because you already got those people's money. You're trying to pull more people into the tent. So, I mean, yeah, if I had the pencil, I would probably have the devil be at the ramp tomorrow night on Dynamite and leading off, oh shit, what the fuck's going to happen Saturday?
Yeah. Well, that's all the notes for that. I do want to talk about the New South event that was in Florence this past Saturday. I went over there, got a ticket, started out on the third row, fella beside me was a little intoxicated, kept trying to fight wrestlers. And I really thought he was about to engage with one at one point, but he didn't. And I actually managed to get that one on video because I was like, I'm going to get this guy the next time he gets up because something's going to happen. And sure enough, got in a dude's face. But yeah, it was a fun event. I ended up moving up to the second row. And then, lots of good matches. I still think that Braden Toon will end up on TV at some point. He kind of reminds me of like KO. Yeah. He's a little thicker than KO in terms of
similar physical build. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's also as ruthless and reckless, I think, as KO.
Has he got the motor mouth?
You don't get a lot of that with New South.
With indie shows, you don't get a lot of, unfortunately.
Yeah. But he really impressed me on the weekend, the last time that GCW was in town, because I went to the Huntsville show and the Florence show, and dude just was killing it. And he had a good match the other night. Then the champion, Hunter Drake versus Dylan McQueen. I thought Dylan would end up getting the title that night, but it was really fun and bloody match. There was quite a bit of blood by the end of that one. Spilled out into the streets. There was something going on. Like I saw a cop out there when it spilled out into the streets. So I thought, okay, well, they were, told beforehand that something would be going on, and they probably just wanted to keep an eye out. Turns out there was some shit popping off down the sidewalk from us.
Hell yeah.
And I look over, and there's somebody on the ground, and I was like, what is happening over there? And then Dylan and Hunter are going at it. There's like a staged, like somebody put a flatbed trailer out there with a big like tarp on it, and they got up on that. And then there's all of a sudden they're in this bench there on the sidewalk. Dylan, like I was 2 feet behind Drake. Dylan smashed the absolute shit out of Drake into that fucking metal bench. And right about that time, I see the GM of New South, Dump Sanders, catch wind of what's happening down the sidewalk. He alerts the ref real quick. Ref gets in their ear and is like, get inside. Something's going down. But yeah, I feel like that was supposed to stay outside longer. But really fun match. We've said this before, but if you've never been to a local show in your area, you really should get out and go. Like, some of these people are going to be the next thing, right? Like at the end of the match, I think I put this in text to you guys. I'm not sure. But Brogan Finley, who was in a group with Hunter Drake and Rico Gonzalez called the Heartbreak Killers. Brogan's been like in some GCW shows and stuff before, but he looked real emotional at the end of the night because he and Rico helped Drake retain over McQueen. And he looked real emotional, and me and a dude from the Fight Boys YouTube channel were DMing about stuff on Sunday. And he said that Brogan reports to the WWE Performance Center in January, so this was probably his last go at it. And I had no idea. I still don't know who Fit Finley is, so you were like,
who Fit Finley is?
I never heard the name before. Remember, I've only been back into this for a few years, and he's just not a name that I've probably heard the name.
Didn't he train Finn Balor?
Mm-hmm. A lot of those guys.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, he had a typical Irish gimmick.
Oh, but he was a full barrel. I mean, he was short, but he was a stout guy.
Yeah, but I mean, he was through WCW all the way up to, he was probably wrestling still in his mid-40s, late 40s.
Okay.
As like a solid mid-card act on SmackDown.
Yeah.
I mean, did the stuff. Hornswoggle kind of reinvented his career.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and this is where I was like, he's Hornswoggle's father, in the sense that for the longest time they had a storyline in WWE where Vince had an illegitimate kid and they were trying to figure out who it was. And it turned out to be Hornswoggle. And then you found out because, Vince couldn't have a Hornswoggle as a kid.
Yeah.
So it turned out to be Finley's kid that.
Yeah.
I'll be damned.
That's one of those classic rewrites because Vince's son was supposed to be Mr. Kennedy, and then Mr.
Yes.
Kennedy gets popped for steroids, and then Mr. Kennedy gets released from the company, and so it's a fucking page one rewrite at that point. So it also, but no, Finley, also David Finley, his oldest son, I believe, is the leader of Bullet Club in Japan right now.
Yes. Okay.
And then Brogan, I think, is his youngest.
Yeah, I read that Brogan is his youngest.
Yeah, and I mean, David could be making his way stateside pretty soon. There is some speculation out, the crazy speculation that David Finley is in the Devil Mask. Again, we talked about that. It has to be somebody.
If it's anybody but
somebody,
Adam Cole, it's a huge letdown. But we talked about that last week. But yeah, I mean, you really should. You and I have been to a couple of shows together over here. And Stephen, we got to get you in on one of these New South shows, and then I'm assuming GCW will be back at some point. Speaking of, Andrade's doing a handful of GCW shows. Did you see that?
I saw that. Yep.
Yeah.
I hit a New South when it was down Decatur way.
Okay.
They had Danhausen versus somebody, and he was pouring teeth, and he came out to
Jericho's
music.
I didn't realize I had seen that video before, but I didn't realize until just a few months ago that was from the Decatur show.
Austin Theory was also a New South champion.
Yeah.
Was he?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, and a bunch of the New South people, like Dylan McQueen, has had matches in AEW. They were probably all like on the Dark YouTube channel when that was a thing. But like I looked it up, and he had matches versus like QT. Now, of course, he's had like 5 or 6 matches. For AEW. So some of these dudes have been at least dipping their toes in that before.
Yeah.
So yeah, get out and go see these guys because some of them will be on to the next level. Some of them you can tell are lifers that have been doing it for 15, 20 years. And
live and die.
Yeah, just doing it because that's the only thing they know how to do. But I mean, I've never seen a bad New South show. So get out and support these guys when you can. It's like $20 a pop, man. You can't beat that.
That's the thing about live wrestling. I mean, even bad live wrestling is good in its own way.
Yeah, you can find some enjoyment in it.
Yeah,
for sure.
The crowd reaction is great. The first time I took my son to one, it was not New South. It was another Huntsville organization. One of his favorite parts was just watching the little old lady in the front row berate the shit out of every wrestler.
Wrestling grannies, they gotta make a comeback.
Yeah.
They've gone away from wrestling. We've lost a lot of stuff as wrestling has evolved over the years. Some stuff it's okay if we lost. Wrestling grannies need to come back.
All right.
Front row.
Final thoughts from either of you before we wrap up?
Tony Storm has to lose.
Get it the fuck out of here.
No, Tony Storm's going to take it, I think.
She got to lose.
This is why you wanted to bring him in, right? Patrick was like, hey, we got to bring Stephen in. He's always got a different point of view from us. I think it'd be helpful. I don't know, man. We're 7 in.
The people who are doing good work in AEW, I think they have to be presented as the best. They have to be presented as champions.
Her story continues. I think the way they brought in, what's her name, May?
Mariah May. I think I mispronounced it last week.
But way they brought her in to be a super fan, that has to be something where she continues, and she can't do that as champion. That's got to be a side project because otherwise it gets tangled up like MJF stuff.
I mean, that's the only way you get yourself out of that. But again, then we're going to run into the exact same problem where the person who's the champion just doesn't matter.
Well, she doesn't already.
Well, yeah, but at least you have the opportunity. You can put it on the person that does matter.
But who would she fight? I mean, that division sucks out loud.
I think you could give Tony. I think you could get instead. You could honestly just give Mariah May if you. I wouldn't. You could just give her and let her be another part of Tony Storm's faction. And keep it going.
Sacrificed Ruby Soho to Red Velvet the other day.
Yeah, again, questionable booking choices, but no, Tony Storm. That's the one thing. If they've gotten 2 things right in AEW right now, they've gotten Roderick Strong right, and they've gotten Tony Storm right.
I think if you give her the belt, it takes away that craziness because it gives it legitimacy.
I mean, maybe.
Yeah. I'd give it to her.
I would too.
I'd give it to
We'll
her.
see.
I think that'll do it for us for the week.
I had one. Can I have a random question for 5 minutes? This has nothing to do with wrestling. So just for 5 minutes here. And I don't even know. I'll tell you how I got into this. Because at work, we were doing like a medieval type of thing with like armors. And I had to pull some like medieval music. And so I went on this whole rabbit hole of like, how long have there been guitars? And there have been guitars apparently since, or some sort of stringed instrument that people play with their fingers since there have been human beings, right? So like 3,500 years as cave drawings. So then I was trying to look at medieval music. All the medieval like guitar music kind of sounds the same, right? It's real flowy and stuff. But what are the chances? And it can't be zero. What are the chances that in just pub somewhere in France in like the 1400s, they're having like a music night and there's a bunch of people just playing guitar, okay? And it's all sounding the same. And then some motherfucker gets up there and plays like the riff to like Sweet Child of Mine, okay? And people are just like, what the fuck was that?
Hunter Drake's entrance music, by the way.
Like, That can't be zero, right? That percentage chance might be low, but it might be zero. I guess what I'm saying is there has to have been some guy that we've never heard about that was the greatest guitar player ever that probably played in front of a king and
before there was recording technology.
Yeah, and that just blew their mind and people were like, that he's a demon because nobody can play the instrument like that, and they just killed that guy.
Tell me you fell down the Bardcore YouTube channels without telling me that you fell down the Bardcore YouTube channels.
Like there probably was a dude like that. Just like, hey, I got one for you, King. And the King's like, holy fuck, what the? No, kill him. What the fuck is that? You can't bring that in here.
Devil.
Yeah.
I mean, women got killed for lesser shit back in the day.
So how far into, did you start listening to the lute versions of Master of Puppets and stuff like that? Because there are tons of them
and then
there.
I saw Slash play Sweet Child of Mine on a acoustic guitar. I'm like, somebody probably fucking did that at some point.
That's just a variation on a D chord. He's just changing the root note. Like he's just playing a D chord like an octave up from where you would normally play a D chord, and he's just moving these two fingers around to change the root note from a G to a D to a C. And then, but those main top three notes are just the same.
It's just like what's the Michael J. Fox meme where he's playing like Chuck Berry or whatever, and they're like, you don't like, but your kids are gonna love it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I was
Berry?
like, there's been so many people that play instruments and their instruments been around for so long. Like somebody had to have done this at some point. Before.
100% somebody. The greatest guitar player ever was never recorded.
And they probably executed him because they probably thought he was a demon.
I got a music rant too. What is the deal with Ozzy? Did he sell out everything he owned this past month? There's like 5 different things that have an Ozzy riff, has an Ozzy song in some fashion or form in it right now.
He's married to his manager. And she pulls the strings, son. She's been pulling the strings.
I ain't going to hate nobody for trying to get that bag. I'm sure he got a lot of money. And getting more money. I mean, what's better than having money? Getting more money.
I mean, War Games, you got War Pigs.
They used it last year, too.
They got I saw some commercial the other day that had Crazy Train going off on it during wrestling.
He could have sold his catalog, too.
Sure.
To like a...
There's some movie that's got like a slow Black Sabbath song going on it.
Man, don't hate. Tony Iommi's got to get some money, too. Geezer Butler's got to get some money. Anyway. They got families. They got to get paid. What else are they doing? Ozzy's fine. He just collects mailbox. I mean, Geezer and Tony are fine too. They get mailbox money just as well, I assume. Like they wrote the music to those songs, right?
Yeah.
They performed them. They at least get the performance royalties.
There's nobody like Ozzy anymore. All rock and roll's just become sanitized. I didn't mean to get us off of that music, but that's been a thought.
It's the Geezer fan Butler.
Yeah, well, y'all, thanks for listening. Tell a friend about us if you enjoy the show. Follow us on social media at Alabama Slam Pod on Twitter. I refuse to call it anything else. Everybody else pretty much still calls it Twitter. Instagram as well, and TikTok. I'm going to try to start doing TikToks again very shortly. We also have a Threads account we don't really use, but we're part of a network called the Alabama Take. We have the alabamatake.com is also available on all social medias, and lots of podcasts happening over there. Monthly book podcast hosted by my lovely wife and her friend Jennifer. Me and a couple friends have a Star Wars podcast that comes out every once in a while. We haven't had one in a few weeks because I was super busy, but got a couple in the can I need to get out there. Taking It Down is a weekly TV podcast, and we got a couple different sports podcasts, The Stare Down and Taking on Sports, that are right now are both weekly. So get your high or college football fix for there, and some NFL discussion as well. Yeah, and I think that's going to do it for us. So we're super excited about the AEW pay-per-view this weekend. And hopefully sooner than later we get that announcement from Tony that we don't have to spend $50 on a pay-per-view again, ever.
Also, he needs to stop doing announcements if it's just to announce things we already know.
Yeah. Yeah. If you want to hear more about that, we ranted for several minutes on that last week. So we appreciate y'all listening to us, and we'll see y'all next week.
Later.
Later.